Brady Quinn, Fox college football analyst, Big Noon Kickoff, host of Two Pros and a Cup of Joe, former Notre Dame quarterback, joining us on the program. Good morning, Brady. Let's start with the obvious. How does each team win tonight here in the national title game?
It's a tough question to answer because I think a lot of people have doubted this Washington Huskies team and their ability to continue to not only beat top-ranked teams. I mean, just go back to the Pac-12 championship game, look at the line of that game. But I think Michael Penix play, and just since he has arrived in Seattle for the Huskies, the way he has played, the ridiculous accuracy down the field, throw after throw, and I know they've got a lot of talented wide receivers, but he's putting the ball in spots where only those guys can get and the defense can't. And I think people keep waiting for it to run out or for it to stop or maybe for them to have a game that looks similar to the Arizona State game where they got held out of the end zone. It was all field goals. But I don't know that's going to happen. I kind of get those like Joe Burrow vibes from the LSU season where they just were unstoppable offensively and the defense was good enough. And maybe that's all Washington has to be. But the one thing you can't measure, Dan, and this is where I kind of got fooled too in looking at that Bama-Michigan matchup, is just the physicality that Michigan plays with and the tone they set early on in games. Have the big plays, you can have the change of momentum, you can have anything you want, but it still comes down to the trenches, and Michigan tries to establish that right out the gate in every game they play, and they've been really successful doing so. And so that's kind of one of those deals you can't measure. And just the fact that, like, Michigan's now a change-up in college football. You heard Nick Saban talk about the challenge of going against a team that huddles, where you might know their personnel grouping, but you don't know their formation. And you really have to make a call and then stick with that call because you don't have the ability to change as compared to when you go against a no-huddle group that's at the line of scrimmage and you can make a change of call when they make a change of call or they do something. Sometimes there's time to do that. You don't have that versus Michigan offensively. And just the last thing is the personnel groupings. Not many people run out there with 2 tight end, 3 tight end, 2 running back, 2 tight end sets and just want to pound away with the football and then build in some pass plays and things off of that. And I think it's tough to prepare for because most college rosters aren't built that way, and Michigan's unique in that sense. So I think this is one in where something's got to give, and I don't think it's going to be Michigan. It just feels like this is that year where Michigan finds a way of winning a tight, close game, but it should be a ton of fun to watch.
Harbaugh's future, do you think it hinges on the outcome of this game tonight?
I think if he wins, you would have to think that he's more apt to go and take an opportunity, and he's probably got no short list of suitors. I mean, who wouldn't want a guy that continually builds teams at the college and NFL level to be contenders and to be teams that can win a championship? That's what he's done. And he's just got that unique quality about him and really that CEO quality where I feel like he's able to make it work in both college and the NFL. I mean, he's proven that already. But even the way he's built up this Michigan program and being able to build it up this season without him even being there. I mean, obviously he was a part of the preparation throughout the course of the week, but on 6 different occasions, he wasn't there. He wasn't the head coach on the sidelines helping his staff make those situational play calls and doing all of that. And I think that speaks volumes to how he's able to build a program like Michigan to withstand that sort of adversity even without him.
Let's look at these 2 quarterbacks, pro potential here, with J.J. McCarthy and Michael Penix Jr. Let me start with Penix Jr. What do you think?
To me, he's got the best tape of anyone this year in college football. I mean, I understand people, and myself included, are enamored with Caleb Williams. The different things he can do to throw off platform and the way he can run around and buy time and create. But there is no one who reminds me more of C.J. Stroud in regards to the downfield pinpoint accuracy with the deep ball. And you're seeing how that's playing out for Houston now as they win the AFC South and move on to the playoffs. That is Michael Penix. I mean, he's proven that now 2 years in a row and one standout year at Indiana, of all places, with the ability to do that. Now, he's had a bunch of injuries, but that's for a medical doctor to decide. I look at all the injuries and say, look at what this young man has overcome and been able to still play at this high of a level. And I think the last thing I'll say is he's a better athlete. People give him credit. I think because of the injuries, he's had to adapt a bit to play more from the pocket, and he does that well. But his movement to throw within the pocket, his movement with pressure, in his face and able to get some of these throws off and on point on the money is ridiculous. So I would say this: if you are only basing this season and your draft evaluation off of this year's film, it'd be Michael Penix as the first quarterback. He's been that special. It's been that ridiculous of a season for him. Yeah. I know he's got a lot of other talent around him at wide receiver. I know he's got the Joe Moore award-winning offensive line, and Ryan Grubb and Kalen DeVore are great play callers. It doesn't take away from how he's executing the things he's done this year.
All right, J.J. McCarthy?
I think he's the guy that, he leaves you always wanting more, and it's not an indictment on him. It's an indictment on kind of just the way they play, their system. And I think there could be an argument made, too, that because they don't allow him to throw the football 40-plus, 50-plus times a game, it actually is more pressure on him. He's got to deliver when they go into that run, pass on third down mode when you're in 3rd and 7-plus. Or, hey, we've basically been hammering away running the football. JJ, we now need you to lead us on a 2-minute drive, and you've only thrown, 10 pass attempts, 12 pass attempts. It's hard to get into a rhythm as a quarterback and be efficient and just be as accurate and everything that he has been this year and really throughout the time in his time in Ann Arbor, and yet he delivers every time. He has been that quarterback who steps up in those moments and delivers with his arm or with his legs. So I think he's a first-round talent. I think a lot of people probably feel that way around him. I think there's going to be a lot of quarterbacks who are put in that conversation with Penix, with McCarthy, with obviously Caleb Williams and Drake May. You hear a lot of. Some people might feel that way about Bo Nix as well. Jaden Daniels is obviously going to fall into that conversation. I mean, there are a number of quarterbacks that are going to be looked at, and maybe some of these teams have potential first-round grades on, or maybe second-round grades, but ended up getting desperate and seeing them there and wanting to take them in the first round.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because if I'm taking you in the top 5 or top 10, you're a different quarterback than I'm taking you at the end of the first round, right?
That's fair. And I think you've got, Jaden Daniels with the season that he had this year, who probably next to Penix has the next best film of anyone you're watching, just with his dual threat ability, how much he's improved from his time at Arizona State to LSU as a passer and from the pocket. Another guy, again, great guys to throw to. Malik Neighbors will be a first-round pick at wide receiver, in my opinion, but it doesn't take away from what he's built and what he's done. And so, he's a guy that I think teams might consider as we continue to watch these NFL teams adapt to more college-style offenses, allowing quarterbacks to be part of that rushing attack or looking for a quarterback with mobility. He's going to start being in that conversation. And then you look at other intangibles, like Bo Nix set an NCAA record for completion percentage this year. I mean, extremely accurate, has continued to improve his ability to play the position from the pocket, but yet you still see those playmaking ability assets that he's got when he needs to pull it out. It was kind of like he leaned on it too much at Auburn. He goes to Oregon, and he's put together quite the career and I think quite the resume to show NFL teams that he's more than just a really good athlete playing quarterback. He's also really accurate. He's a good decision maker, and he can make some plays when you need him to make some plays. So this is a loaded quarterback draft class, in my opinion. Some people look at Caleb Williams, Drake May, and say those are those top 5 talented guys. I would say Penix tape and Jaden Daniels tape thrust both those two up into that conversation as well this year.
He's Brady Quinn, former college and NFL quarterback working for Fox, their college football analyst. NFL regular season most disappointing team was who?
Probably the Saints. I just think that was a team that preseason had, I think, the heaviest odds or favorite to win the NFC South. It was a loaded roster. It was one in which I really thought, Derek Carr, who did play much better football down the stretch, was going to be a big-time difference for them. I thought they'd be hosting a playoff game this upcoming weekend, and it wasn't the case. And at times, it just felt like they couldn't find a rhythm on offense. Defensively, they couldn't showcase what I think their personnel is on paper and playing up to that standard. They were probably the most, I guess, disappointing in my mind, only because of the expectations that were out there. And you had the worst team in their division in the Carolina Panthers, and you had a couple other teams in the Bucs, obviously, who I think were a pleasant surprise, but they were the most surprising. I think their odds to win the division before the season were plus 800. No one really saw that coming. And then Atlanta, obviously, who just fired Arthur Smith. Some people might have had high expectations. I always thought they needed a quarterback. So the reality is that the Saints were probably that team for me this year, even though the record isn't that bad.
Yeah, I said Jacksonville because I thought they could get to the AFC title game with that talent. But do you have any hesitation about signing up Trevor Lawrence long term if you're Jacksonville?
I don't, and I think there's a lot of things that they need to check under the hood and reevaluate there, whether it's the inconsistencies in play calling, and whether that's on Doug Peterson or Press Taylor. Only those two really know behind closed doors. It seemed like Trevor Lawrence was constantly playing through some sort of injury this year. The Calvin Ridley trade and all the hype we heard before the season didn't really work out the way I think a lot of us had thought it was going to work out, where he would be this dynamic player that maybe wins, comeback player of the year. And I only say that because at this point, I have no idea what the criteria is for the AP or the comeback player of the year in the NFL, because it seems like it's a wide net. Like if you have a really good season and you didn't play or got hurt or something else happened last year, there's a decent chance you could be a comeback player of the year. But I digress. In their defense, I think they've got, again, some solid pieces, but collectively as a unit, outside of when they were able to generate turnovers, they struggled to get off the field. They struggled to stop opponents from having big plays. It felt like this team, overachieved last year, and we had high expectations this year. And you looked at their schedule and said they should probably be one of the top teams in the AFC, but it never really came together the way it needed to.
Explain C.J. Stroud.
I think he inhabits all of the things that you're looking for in the NFL game from a quarterback perspective. The first thing is he's accurate. Like, that is something that people talk about accuracy, and they'll talk about mechanics. I'm personally the biggest believer in the improvement in accuracy comes from your eyes and understanding where you need to go to the football and addressing those throws and consistently throwing off of a consistent base that allows you to be more consistently accurate. He does that. Like, he knows where to go with the football. He's extremely accurate when he gets there. And I don't care how you want to stop the tape, but every time if you want to stop before he releases the football, he's got a great base, a great platform. He finds a way of getting to that and delivering an absolute strike. And then he's got the ability, like we saw in his final game in college, but also throughout the course of the season, when things aren't there, the ability to scramble, buy time, keep his eyes downfield. But I think the accuracy is the first thing, and really he's got the ability to do that at all three levels. And he's a passer, not a thrower, which he can shape throws. I always think, like, when you watch his pregame warm-up, have you guys seen it when he's shooting the basketball and he's swinging the bat? He's doing all these different drills. He's got such a good feel for how the ball is going to come off his finger and how it's going to feel coming off his hand, to be able to shape it into different types of windows like you have to do to achieve at the level he's doing right now. And so he's got a unique, I think, an uncanny ability to be able to just kind of feel and play the game, utilizing his skill set. And then last thing, I think it's just clutch. Like, I think he loves when the game's on the line, put it on him. He'll make a throw. He'll make a play to be able to give his team a chance to go win the football game. So honestly, the biggest crime for the Texans this season is the fact they don't have Tank Dell. Because I'd love to see what this team could do now that they're in the playoffs and Nico Collins playing out of his mind. And if Tank Dell is a part of this and Noah Brown back healthy, I'd love to see what this team would be capable of doing.
Yeah, sometimes we overthink the position. When we look at quarterbacks, we're like, oh, we got to break down everything. And sometimes you just look at the tape. And I watched that game against Georgia, and I kept coming back to that. Like, what is the knock on him? Oh, he's not processing at the line of scrimmage. Then it feels like there's people out there who are trying to slander somebody so they go lower, or you get a chance to get that. I mean, there's a lot of games that are played there leading up to the draft, as you know. But I kept going back to the Georgia game. I'm going, the guy did everything you would want to. It's almost like Deshaun Watson. When he was playing in college, I kept going, wait, what is the knock on him? Like, on the field, that dude answered. He won a title. And then we kept going, I think Mitchell Trubisky's got a greater upside. And you're like, okay, all right, keep overthinking it.
Well, you don't know what it is. I think in today's world, with all the data and analytics that we now have all this information, and we want to find a use for the information. And the hardest thing is when you say, like, put on the tape, it's like we can all put on the tape and watch a guy and go, man, he's really good, right? Or, hey, he's really fast. Well, yeah, but how fast is he? All right, let's go have him run a 40-yard sprint, and then we'll compare him to everyone else because, you do that in a game of football, right? You get down in T-shirt and shorts and a three-point stance, and you're going to go from a stop and run straight 40 yards. It's like, well, that's not really the best way of comparing, but that's just like what we do to be able to get an idea of how fast that guy is. So I think, honestly, the evaluation process now more than ever has relied on finding these data points, finding these ways of measuring guys, and whether it's their processing, their cognitive, their athleticism, and we're looking for a way of justifying our decision, right? Because it's tough and looking at, hey, it's probably a variety of things. There's a ton of variables that affect anyone's performance and what they're capable of as a player, both good and bad. But if we can figure out a way of then justifying the decision based on these metrics, that helps us feel better about it, right? Like if you just go, yeah, I don't know, kind of felt I had a gut instinct, right? Like tonight's game. If I asked you who you're putting your money on tonight, and you said, I don't know, I think Michigan's pretty tough to beat. I'm going to lay the 4.5 or whatever the number's at now. Well, what makes you say that? That's my gut. Like if I when you called me and we're talking right now, and I said that to you, you'd be like, well, I don't want to follow that. I don't feel very good about that. I need a reason. I need some data points or some analytics to help me be like, yeah, that makes sense. So, okay, I'll bet along with you. That's where we're at now. And I think that's why we overcomplicate things is we can't put a metric, data point, et cetera, outside of stats, from watching the tape and understanding and appreciating like what guys are capable of. And so we try to find other ways of doing that. And that's how we make it complicated and more difficult than it needs to be.
Always great to talk to you, Brady. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Enjoy the game tonight.
All right. That's Brady Quinn, Fox Sports